He arrived at the office early, as he always did. The city was still waking up, and the streets were quiet. He liked the calm before the chaos began. He walked through the tall glass doors and felt the familiar chill of the air conditioning. Everything was in its place, and he liked it that way. His office was neat and organized. The papers were stacked carefully on his desk, and the computer screen was clean and ready for the day. He sat in his chair and looked out of the window at the city below. He liked watching people move through the streets like tiny ants going about their lives. It made him feel in control and a little separate from the world. He had always been a private man. At work he was strict and serious. Employees respected him, but they also feared him a little. Spoke clearly and directly and did not waste time with small talk. Meetings were efficient and decisions were made quickly.
Ow.
He believed in doing things right and getting results. Mistakes were not tolerated, and he was quick to notice them. Some people called him cold because he did not smile often and rarely shared his feelings. But that was how he had always been. He'd like to keep his emotions hidden and his mind focused. Despite his stern exterior, he had a part of himself that he kept locked away, a part that longed for connection and understanding. He noticed people, sometimes smiled at him or looked at him in a way that suggested they wanted to be friends. He did not know how to respond. Years of focusing on work had made him careful about letting anyone in, and he feared getting too close and being hurt. So he kept his distance and continued to be the cold boss. Everyone knew. Every morning he walked through the office floor and observed his team. They worked diligently and tried to meet his expectations. He appreciated their efforts even if he did not say it aloud. There was one person in particular who always caught his attention. She was different from the others. She had a warmth that was hard to ignore. She smiled easily and spoke kindly to everyone. Her laughter was light and natural, and it seemed to brighten the room. She had a way of making people feel comfortable and valued. He noticed her quietly from his office, admiring her professionalism and the way she handled situations with grace. He did not approach her directly. He preferred to observe from a distance and keep his feelings to himself. The day began with the usual rush of emails and phone calls. He moved through them efficiently, replying quickly and making decisions without hesitation. He noticed when someone made a small mistake and corrected it immediately, but without raising his voice. His team knew to expect precision and clarity from him. They learned to respect his time and understand the standards he set. He believed that being strict did not mean being unkind. It meant being fair and ensuring that everyone performed their best. He liked the sense of order and control that came from a well-run office. As the morning continued, he saw her pass by his office several times. Each time she looked at him briefly and smiled politely. He felt a strange warmth in his chest that he was not used to. He quickly pushed the feeling away and returned to his work. He reminded himself that personal feelings had no place in a professional environment. Yet he could not help noticing her energy and the way she moved through the office with confidence and ease. There was something magnetic about her presence that drew his attention, even as he tried to remain detached. Lunchtime came, and the office quieted down for a while. He stayed in his office, reviewing reports and preparing for meetings. Occasionally, he glanced at her as she interacted with colleagues. She was patient and thoughtful, always willing to help when someone needed guidance. He noticed her kindness and efficiency and admired it silently. He had never allowed himself to think about anyone in this way before. The feelings were new and confusing. He wondered why he felt drawn to her, yet remained hesitant to speak to her directly. His mind wrestled with the unfamiliar emotion and the desire to maintain his composure. The afternoon brought more work and meetings. He called his team together to discuss a new project. Everyone listened carefully as he explained the tasks and deadlines. He was precise in his instructions and clear about expectations. During the meeting, he noticed her contributions, asked insightful questions, and offered suggestions that improved the plan. He observed her quietly and felt a flicker of admiration. She had a natural talent for understanding complex situations and offering solutions. He had seen many employees over the years, but she stood out in a way that was hard to define. After the meeting, he returned to his office and continued with his work. He found himself thinking about her more than he wanted to, reminded himself that he was the boss and needed to maintain professionalism. He could not let personal feelings interfere with his judgment, yet every time she walked past his office, or spoke to a colleague, he felt a surge of curiosity and interest. He wondered what it would be like to know her better outside of work, to see the person behind the friendly smile and calm demeanor. He quickly pushed the thought away and focused on the task at hand as the day drew to a close. He walked through the office one more time. Employees were packing up and saying their goodbyes. He noticed her gathering her things and preparing to leave. He felt a sudden desire to speak to her but could not find the words. He watched her quietly and then returned to his office. He liked the order of his office, the control he had over his work, and the calm routine of his day. Yet he could not ignore the new feelings that had begun to stir within him. They were quiet but persistent, a reminder that even the most disciplined person could experience emotion. He stayed late that evening, finishing reports and planning for the next day. The office was empty and silent, giving him space to think. He realized that his admiration for her had grown stronger throughout the day. He did not fully understand why he felt this way. It was unfamiliar and a little unsettling. He had always been careful to protect himself from emotional vulnerability. Now he faced a new challenge, acknowledging feelings he had never allowed himself to experience. He made a silent promise to remain professional while figuring out what these emotions meant. He knew that understanding and controlling his feelings would take time, but he was willing to face the challenge. Before leaving, he looked out of his office window once more. The city lights twinkled below, and he felt a strange sense of anticipation. He did not know what the future would hold, or how his emotions would develop. He only knew that the day had changed something within him. A part of him that he had kept hidden for years had awakened. It was a quiet, persistent feeling that he could not ignore. He turned off the lights, locked his office, and walked out into the cool night. He felt both a sense of accomplishment and a new curiosity about the person who had captured his attention without even knowing it. The day had been ordinary in many ways, yet extraordinary in the way it had stirred feelings he had long kept buried. He walked home thinking about the routines of life, the people around him, and the unexpected emotions that had begun to shape his inner world. He knew that tomorrow would bring more challenges, more work, and perhaps more moments that would reveal how deeply these new feelings would affect him. The next morning arrived with the usual quiet calm of the early office hours. He arrived first as always and took a moment to organize his thoughts. The day ahead was filled with tasks and meetings, but a part of him could not stop thinking about her. He wondered how someone so cheerful and calm could move through a busy office and remain untouched by stress. He watched her from a distance as she entered the office. She greeted colleagues warmly and smiled naturally at everyone she passed. It was effortless, and it made him aware of the contrast between her light energy and his own strict, serious demeanor. He could not explain why he felt drawn to her, but he could not deny it. Every detail of her presence caught his attention and held it. Throughout the morning, she moved around the office, helping people, organizing work, and ensuring things ran smoothly. He noticed the way she spoke clearly and listened attentively. She had a way of making people feel important and heard. Employees responded to her warmth and guidance naturally. He admired how she balanced kindness with efficiency and strength. While he focused on precision and control, she focused on harmony. And understanding, he observed her quietly, noting her gestures, the way her eyes lit up when she spoke to someone, and the calm confidence she carried. He tried to stay focused on his work, but found himself distracted by her presence. It was a new feeling, one that made him both uneasy and fascinated. During a team meeting, he watched her contribute with clear, thoughtful ideas. She spoke with confidence and clarity, but without arrogance. She listened to others and responded with patience and insight. Her input improved the plan and made the work more manageable for everyone. He noticed the subtle way she looked around the room and made eye contact with each person. It was natural and welcoming and made the atmosphere more open. He felt a mix of admiration and curiosity. He wanted to understand her thinking process and learn more about her perspective. It was unusual for him to feel this way. Usually he focused solely on the tasks and efficiency of the team. Now his attention kept drifting toward her and the way she engaged with people. Lunchtime offered a brief pause in the day. He stayed in his office, reviewing documents but occasionally glancing at her as she moved through the office. She laughed softly with colleagues and offered assistance where needed. It was a gentle reminder of the warmth he often lacked in his own interactions. He thought about how he had spent years building walls around his emotions. He was efficient, disciplined, and respected but isolated. Watching her reminded him of a world where connection was possible. It was both fascinating and slightly unsettling. He remembered moments from previous days when he noticed her kindness and calm demeanor. Each memory made him more aware of his own feelings. He realized that admiration was turning into something deeper. He was beginning to care about her in ways he had never allowed himself to feel for anyone else, though. Afternoon brought new tasks and challenges. He called a small group together to discuss upcoming projects. She participated actively, suggesting improvements and anticipating potential difficulties. Her perspective was different from his but complementary. He noticed how her presence lightened the mood of the room and encouraged others to speak freely. Employees seemed more relaxed and willing to contribute when she was involved. He watched her closely. He was learning not just about the work, but about the effects she had on people. Her ability to combine efficiency with empathy was striking. He admired the way she could balance professional responsibilities with personal warmth. It made him reflect on his own approach and realize that there were ways to lead without being distant. After the meeting, he stayed behind to review reports and prepare for the next day. He thought about how much he wanted to communicate with her, but did not know how. His usual confidence in decision-making faltered when it came to personal interaction. He had never experienced this uncertainty before. The idea of approaching her directly made him anxious but also curious. He imagined casual conversations, sharing insights, and perhaps even learning about her outside the office. Yet he reminded himself that professionalism was essential. He could not let his personal feelings interfere with work. He needed to find a balance between his responsibilities and his growing interest in her. Throughout the afternoon, he observed small interactions she had with colleagues. She offered guidance, encouragement, and support without drawing attention to herself. He noticed her patience when someone struggled with a task. He admired the way she listened attentively and provided feedback that was both honest and gentle. Her presence seemed to bring calm and confidence to others. He felt a quiet yearning to be part of that energy, to understand it more deeply, and to perhaps share a connection. It was unfamiliar territory for him. He had always been the observer, the leader, and the decision-maker. Now he felt a desire to engage on a different level, one that required vulnerability and openness. The office grew quieter as the day progressed. He saw her tidying up her workspace and preparing to leave. He considered walking up to her and starting a conversation but hesitated. Words seemed insufficient, and he feared revealing too much too soon. Instead, he watched her from his office, appreciating the small details that made her presence unique. The tilt of her head when she smiled, the way she organized her desk, the gentle way she interacted with people passing by. He realized that his interest in her was no longer just professional admiration. It was something more personal and emotional. He felt a strange mix of excitement and apprehension. The thought of what it might mean to express his feelings or to get closer was both enticing and intimidating before. Leaving, he took a moment to reflect on the day. He thought about the way she moved through the office, the impact she had on others, and the growing awareness of his own feelings. He understood that the coming days would be different. He needed to navigate this new emotional terrain while maintaining his role and responsibilities. He resolved to observe more, understand his feelings, and perhaps find a way to connect without compromising professionalism. The city lights outside his office window twinkled as he packed his briefcase and prepared to leave. The quiet of the evening was a stark contrast to the energy she brought to the office. He walked home with a sense of anticipation, thinking about the balance between work, emotion, and human connection. The day had been ordinary and routine, but extraordinary in the way it stirred his thoughts and feelings about someone who had unknowingly captured his attention and curiosity. The day started like any other, but he could not shake the feeling that today would be different. He arrived early and settled into his office, observing the city below. The calm of the morning usually helped him focus, but his mind kept wandering. He remembered the way she had moved through the office yesterday, the way she laughed and spoke with colleagues. Those memories were vivid, and they stirred a new kind of emotion he had not experienced before. He tried to focus on the reports and tasks waiting on his desk, but every glance toward the office floor reminded him of her. There was an unfamiliar tension in his chest, a mixture of admiration and something sharper, something that made him restless. Later in the morning, he noticed her talking to another colleague. They laughed softly and exchanged words with ease. He saw a casual touch on the shoulder, a shared joke, and the way her eyes lit up. For the first time, he felt a sharp pang of jealousy. He had never thought of himself as possessive or envious, but seeing her in someone else's company brought a sudden uncomfortable awareness of his feelings. He turned back to his desk and tried to push the feeling aside. He reminded himself that she was free to interact with anyone. Yet the sight of her warmth and attention being directed elsewhere created a tension he could not ignore. He found himself watching closely, noticing the small gestures, the gentle smiles, the connection he could not claim. The jealousy burned quietly but persistently, making him aware of emotions he had kept buried for years throughout. The morning he moved through meetings and calls, but his mind kept returning to her. He caught glimpses of her as she helped colleagues and offered advice. She was patient and kind as always, unaware of the storm brewing in his mind. He felt a mix of admiration and irritation, confusion and longing. His usually calm and measured demeanor was hard to maintain. He realized that his feelings were more complicated than he had anticipated, and that control over his emotions was slipping. At lunch, he stayed in his office, pretending to review documents. His mind, however, replayed every interaction he had seen earlier. He thought about how she laughed, the way she made eye contact with the other person, and the ease of her presence. He felt an ache of desire and a sting of jealousy combined. He could not understand why seeing her with someone else affected him so deeply. He was not used to feeling vulnerable in this way. He had always relied on logic, discipline, and a careful separation of work and emotion. Now those walls seemed fragile, and his inner thoughts were restless. The afternoon brought a series of meetings. He tried to focus on the tasks and guide his team, but his attention frequently drifted. He noticed her contributions and the way others responded to her advice. She had a presence that made people feel comfortable and valued. He admired her skill and grace, but also felt an uncomfortable competitiveness toward the colleague she had been spending time with. The jealousy grew quietly inside him, making him more aware of his desire to be close to her. It was a new and confusing experience that he did not know how to handle. He watched her leave the meeting room with the other person, laughing softly. The scene replayed in his mind over and over. He felt a mixture of longing and irritation, a need to intervene and a fear of doing so. He realized that his careful professionalism could not shield him from these emotions. He had always believed in control and detachment, but now he faced a part of himself that he could not ignore. He wondered how long he could maintain his composure without revealing the inner turmoil back. In his office, he tried to focus on the reports and tasks that needed attention. He reviewed each detail carefully, but his mind wandered. He imagined what it would be like if she looked at him the same way, if she shared moments of warmth directly with him. The jealousy he felt was a reflection of his desire to connect, to be seen, and to be valued by someone he admired deeply. He recognized that his emotions were complicated, blending admiration, longing. In a new sense of vulnerability, he spent the afternoon observing the way she interacted with others, noticing subtle gestures, the tone of her voice, and the ease of her movements. Every small interaction became magnified in his mind. He felt a tension between wanting to remain professional and the urge to express his feelings. It was a delicate balance that he did not know how to manage. As the day progressed, he noticed subtle changes in himself. He was more aware of his heart rate, the tension in his shoulders, and the way his thoughts returned repeatedly to her. He questioned whether his feelings were appropriate or whether they would compromise his judgment. He realized that his strict adherence to control and order had left him unprepared for the complexity of human emotion. He felt a need to understand his own reactions and to navigate them carefully. Late in the afternoon, he saw her leaving the office briefly with the other person. They were smiling and talking quietly. He felt a sharp pang of jealousy that made his chest tighten. He struggled to maintain his usual calm exterior and focused on the work in front of him. He reminded himself that she was free to spend her time as she wished and that his role was to remain professional. Yet the emotional response he experienced was undeniable. He recognized that these feelings were a powerful force, one that demanded attention and reflection. He stayed late in the office, reviewing reports and planning for upcoming projects. The office was quiet, and the city lights flickered outside. He sat alone, thinking about the events of the day and the intensity of his feelings. He realized that his usual methods of emotional control were insufficient. The jealousy he felt was not just about wanting to possess her, but about a deeper longing for connection and understanding. He had spent years prioritizing work and order, yet now he was confronted with the raw complexity of human emotion. As he prepared to leave, he reflected on the day. He thought about the moments he had observed, the feelings that had arisen, and the way his emotions had challenged his usual composure. He understood that he could not ignore what he felt. He needed to navigate these feelings carefully, balancing his professional responsibilities with the new awareness of desire, admiration, and jealousy. The experience was both unsettling and enlightening. It revealed a side of himself that had been dormant, a part that sought connection and warmth beyond the walls of his office. He walked through the empty office, observing the quiet spaces where she had been. He thought about the contrast between her lightness and his own rigidity. He recognized that he wanted to understand her more deeply, to experience moments of closeness and conversation. Yet he was wary of overstepping professional boundaries. The jealousy he felt was a signal of the depth of his feelings, and a reminder that even a disciplined and controlled person could experience powerful, uncontrollable emotion. As he left the building and stepped into the cool night, he reflected on the intensity of the day. He understood that his emotions were evolving, moving beyond simple admiration to something more complex and urgent. He knew that navigating this new emotional terrain would require patience, self-awareness, and courage. The jealousy he felt was not just a fleeting reaction, but a catalyst for reflection and potential change. He walked home slowly, thinking about the possibilities, the challenges, and the ways in which his feelings might shape the days to come. The experience had awakened something within him, a recognition that human connection and emotion could not be ignored, even in a life structured around discipline and control. Morning arrived, and he entered the office with a sense of quiet tension. His mind was restless as he thought about the previous days. He remembered the moments when she had laughed, when her smile had lit up the room, and when she had shared gentle words with others. The jealousy he had felt was still present, but there was more now, a deeper awareness of what he truly desired. He wanted to understand his feelings and to consider what they meant for him. And for the way he lived his life, he started his day by reviewing reports and preparing for meetings. He focused on the numbers, the schedules, and the tasks ahead. Yet even in the midst of work, he found his thoughts drifting to her. He remembered small details about her gestures, the way she listened to others, and the calm confidence she carried. These memories were comforting, yet stirring. Making him more aware of the complexity of his own emotions. During the morning, he watched her interact with the team. She guided people gently, encouraged questions, and shared ideas with patience. Her presence seemed to make others more confident and cooperative. He admired her skill, her warmth, and the balance she maintained between kindness and efficiency. He wondered how she had developed such a natural ability to lead. Without seeming overbearing or controlling, he reflected on his own approach to leadership in life. He had always believed in strict discipline, order, and efficiency. He had kept emotions at a distance, believing that vulnerability would weaken him. Yet watching her made him question whether strength required coldness and detachment. Perhaps there was room for connection, for warmth, for understanding. Even within his professional world, he noticed that the jealousy he had felt was not just about her attention to others. It was about his desire to connect, to feel seen, and to experience the warmth of human interaction that he had long avoided. The awareness was unsettling, but also enlightening. At lunch, he stayed in his office, thinking quietly. He considered past experiences and the choices that had led him to prioritize control and work above personal connection. He remembered moments when he had observed others forming bonds, sharing laughter, and enjoying companionship. There had been a longing in him even then, a curiosity about human emotion that he had not explored fully. He realized that the presence of someone like her brought those dormant desires to the surface. It was a reminder that life was not only about structure, precision, and results. It was also about human connection, about shared moments and understanding, about feeling and being felt in return. The afternoon was filled with meetings and interactions. He observed her skillfully managing tasks and helping colleagues. He watched the way she listened, responded, and offered support. There was a grace in her approach that made people feel valued and capable. He considered how rare it was to find someone who could balance professionalism with warmth so naturally. He thought about his own approach and the walls he had built to protect himself from emotional vulnerability. He spent time reflecting on his feelings. He understood that the jealousy he had experienced was a signal of deeper emotion. It was not just about competition or control. It was about desire, admiration, and the need for connection. He questioned why he had never allowed himself to feel so deeply, why he had relied solely on discipline in order to navigate life. He considered the possibility of opening up, of exploring the new awareness that had emerged within him. The thought was both frightening and exciting. It challenged his identity, his carefully maintained exterior, and his belief in the necessity of emotional distance. Throughout the afternoon, he observed subtle moments, small gestures that revealed character and intention. He noticed how she encouraged someone struggling with a task, how she quietly acknowledged a job well done, and how she maintained composure under pressure. Each observation reinforced his admiration and increased his awareness of what he valued in human interaction. He began to see the potential for growth in himself, the possibility of blending discipline with warmth, control with empathy. He also noticed his own reactions, the tension in his chest, the restlessness in his thoughts, and the quiet longing that persisted. He understood that these feelings were not distractions but insights. They were a guide to understanding what he had been missing, what he had avoided, and what he truly desired in life. He considered how he could integrate this awareness into his daily existence without compromising his responsibilities or professional standards. As the day progressed, he thought about how to act on these reflections. He wanted to communicate, to connect, and to understand her better. Yet he was cautious, aware of boundaries and the need for patience. He considered small, subtle ways to engage without overstepping, ways to observe and learn, ways to gradually explore human connection. Without fear or force, he also considered his own limitations and fears. He knew that vulnerability was uncomfortable, but necessary for growth. He reflected on past choices that had kept him isolated and recognized that he could take steps to change. To allow himself to feel more fully and to engage more deeply with the people around him, he stayed late. After most of the office had emptied, the quiet allowed him to think uninterrupted. He reviewed the events of the day and the lessons he had gleaned from observation and reflection. He understood that his emotions were complex, that they required attention, patience, and courage. He also recognized that admiration and longing were natural human experiences, not weaknesses. The realization brought a quiet sense of clarity and purpose. He considered the next days, the possibilities of building understanding, observing further, and perhaps finding subtle opportunities to connect in meaningful ways. He understood that change would be gradual, requiring self-awareness, patience, and careful navigation of professional and personal boundaries. Before leaving, he looked out at the city lights, thinking about the balance between control and emotion, discipline and warmth, isolation and connection. He knew that the inner struggle was ongoing, that understanding and integrating these feelings would take time, effort, and reflection. Yet he felt a quiet resolve to explore this new awareness and to allow himself to grow beyond the rigid patterns he had maintained for so long. The evening air was cool as he left the building. He walked slowly, contemplating the subtle lessons of the day. He understood that human emotion, connection, and vulnerability were not distractions from life, but essential parts of it. He felt a quiet anticipation, a readiness to face the challenges of his own heart. and a desire to navigate the emerging complexities of feeling, understanding, and connection in a world where he had long relied on control and detachment. The morning arrived and he entered the office with a sense of quiet anticipation. The previous days had been filled with observation, reflection, and growing awareness of his feelings. He had thought carefully about how to act, how to engage without overstepping, and how to balance professionalism with the desire for connection. Today, he decided to take subtle steps toward understanding her more deeply without disrupting the flow of work. He started by observing her interactions with the team. She moved through the office with calm efficiency, offering guidance, encouragement, and support. He noticed the way she listened attentively, responded thoughtfully, and maintained composure under pressure. Her presence was warm and reassuring, and it created a positive atmosphere for everyone. He felt a quiet admiration and a desire to be closer, to understand her perspective, and to share small moments of conversation throughout the morning. He found opportunities to engage indirectly. He asked her opinion on a project, listened carefully to her insights, and acknowledged the value of her contributions. The interaction was brief but meaningful. He felt a small connection forming, a subtle recognition of her skill, warmth, and thoughtfulness. It was a step forward, a careful approach to bridging the gap between professional respect and personal interest. As the day progressed, he looked for other small moments to engage. He offered encouragement to her ideas, asked questions that invited collaboration, and created opportunities for dialogue. He noticed her responses were thoughtful and attentive, and he felt a quiet satisfaction in the way she engaged without pretense or artifice. He realized that patience and subtlety were key, that connection could grow naturally without forcing intimacy or crossing boundaries. Lunchtime brought a pause, and he considered the next steps. He reflected on his emotions, the subtle signs of mutual respect, and the possibilities for future interaction. He thought about the balance between professional responsibility and personal curiosity. He knew that overt expressions of feeling could be disruptive, so he focused on creating moments of shared understanding, small gestures that communicated interest without pressure or expectation. He observed her as she moved through the office, noting her interactions with colleagues, her calm presence, and the gentle way she handled questions and challenges. He admired her ability to maintain warmth and authority simultaneously, and he reflected on his own growth in learning to appreciate connection as much as efficiency. In the afternoon, he scheduled a brief meeting that allowed them to collaborate closely on a project. The discussion was professional, yet engaging. He listened to her ideas, offered suggestions, and acknowledged her input. There was a subtle ease in their interaction, a quiet rhythm that felt natural and comfortable. He noticed that she seemed attentive, responsive, and equally engaged in the conversation. The exchange was a small but meaningful step toward mutual understanding. He also observed her. In moments when she interacted with others, he noticed how she encouraged team members, offered support to those struggling, and maintained composure under pressure. He realized that her approach created a sense of confidence and ease among colleagues, and he admired the way she combined empathy with professionalism. He reflected on how these qualities had inspired him to consider new ways of engaging and leading with warmth rather than distance throughout the afternoon. He considered the significance of his emotions. He recognized that desire, admiration, and curiosity were natural human responses. He acknowledged the jealousy he had felt previously as a reflection of his desire to connect and his appreciation of her qualities. He understood that these feelings were not weaknesses, but opportunities for growth and self-awareness. He considered how to navigate these emotions responsibly, allowing for connection without compromising professional integrity. As the day drew to a close, he prepared to leave the office. He reflected on the interactions of the day, the subtle progress and understanding, and the quiet connection that had begun to form. He considered how patience, observation, and careful engagement could foster meaningful relationships without forcing intimacy or disrupting the professional environment. He felt a sense of calm satisfaction in the awareness that connection could grow naturally through respect, attentiveness, and mutual understanding. Before leaving, he took a moment to reflect on the city lights outside his office window. He thought about the balance between work and emotion, discipline and warmth, control and connection. He understood that his journey had been one of self-discovery, reflection, and careful navigation of feelings. He felt a quiet anticipation for the future, knowing that small, thoughtful actions could lead to meaningful relationships over time. He walked home slowly, thinking about the possibilities of further engagement, shared understanding, and personal growth. He considered the potential for mutual respect and connection to develop naturally, without pressure or expectation, guided by patience, observation, and quiet attentiveness. In the following days, he continued to observe and engage thoughtfully. He looked for small opportunities to interact, ask questions, and acknowledge contributions. Each moment was an opportunity to learn more about her perspective, understand her approach, and deepen a sense of mutual respect. He felt a growing sense of appreciation for the complexity of human connection and the ways in which patience, attentiveness, and subtle engagement could foster meaningful relationships. He also reflected on his own growth. He recognized that the previous pattern of emotional distance had limited his understanding of connection and collaboration. He acknowledged the value of warmth, attentiveness, and empathy in building both personal and professional relationships. He felt a sense of pride in his ability to adapt, observe, and engage thoughtfully, recognizing that growth was an ongoing process and that meaningful connection required awareness, patience, and care. As he continued to engage in small, thoughtful ways, he noticed subtle changes in their interactions. There was a quiet ease, a sense of understanding, and a gentle rapport that developed over time. The connection was gradual and natural, built on respect, attentiveness, and mutual appreciation. He felt a sense of fulfillment in the progress made, recognizing that meaningful connection was nurtured through patience, observation, and shared understanding. He reflected on the journey from initial admiration, through jealousy and emotional awareness, to careful engagement and growing connection. He understood that emotions were complex, that self-awareness and reflection were essential, and that meaningful relationships required patience, attentiveness, and respect for boundaries. He felt a quiet sense of accomplishment in navigating his feelings responsibly and thoughtfully in the final moments of the day. He considered the lessons learned. He realized that human connection could not be forced, but could grow naturally through careful attention, respect, and patience. He acknowledged the value of vulnerability, self-awareness, thoughtful engagement in fostering meaningful relationships. He felt a sense of quiet satisfaction in the progress made and anticipation for the future, knowing that connection, understanding, and personal growth were ongoing processes guided by awareness, care, and respect. He left the office feeling calm, aware, and hopeful. The journey had revealed the importance of observation, patience, and subtle engagement in navigating emotions and relationships. He felt prepared to continue exploring meaningful connection while maintaining professionalism and responsibility. The day had brought clarity, insight, and a quiet sense of fulfillment. He walked home slowly, reflecting on the journey, the growth achieved, and the possibilities for continued understanding, connection, and personal development in the days ahead. The next day, he arrived at the office with a quiet determination. The previous days had been full of observation, reflection, and small steps toward understanding. He had learned the importance of patience, subtlety, and careful engagement. Today, he wanted to focus on learning more about her perspective and creating moments of connection without disrupting the natural flow of the office. He understood that meaningful interaction required time, attentiveness, and thoughtfulness as he settled into his office. He watched her move through the workspace. She greeted colleagues warmly, offered guidance where needed, and managed tasks with calm efficiency. He observed the way she balanced professionalism with warmth, noting her ability to make people feel comfortable and valued. Her presence seemed effortless yet powerful, and he felt a quiet admiration and a growing desire to understand her. Approached more deeply throughout the morning, he found small opportunities to engage with her. He asked her opinion on minor details, acknowledged her insights, and listened attentively to her responses. Each interaction was brief but meaningful, allowing him to learn more about her way of thinking and working. He realized that connection could be nurtured through observation, respect, and subtle engagement rather than direct confrontation or overt displays of emotion. He also reflected on his own reactions. The subtle tension he had felt in the past was now replaced with a sense of curiosity and attentiveness. He considered how patience, careful observation, and thoughtful interaction could create an environment where connection could flourish naturally. He understood that meaningful relationships required time, trust, and consistent. Respectful engagement during meetings, he noticed how she communicated with clarity and empathy. She listened carefully, responded thoughtfully, and encouraged contributions from everyone. He admired the balance she maintained between authority and warmth. He thought about his own approach to leadership and realized that incorporating empathy and attentiveness could enhance his effectiveness and build stronger connections with the team. He spent time throughout the morning observing her interactions with others. He noted how she encouraged team members who were struggling, acknowledged good work, and created a supportive environment. He reflected on how her approach inspired confidence and collaboration among colleagues. He felt a quiet desire to emulate some of her qualities and to understand the subtle ways in which warmth and authority could coexist. Lunchtime offered a pause and a moment for reflection. He thought about the lessons he had learned over the past few days and how his feelings had evolved. He understood that his admiration had grown into a desire for meaningful connection. He considered ways to engage thoughtfully without compromising professionalism. The key, he realized, was to create subtle opportunities for interaction, to observe, and to respond with attentiveness and respecting the afternoon. He sought opportunities to collaborate more closely. He initiated discussions on ongoing projects, listened carefully to her suggestions, and incorporated her ideas where appropriate. The interactions were professional, but carried a subtle sense of mutual understanding. He noticed that she responded with attentiveness and thoughtfulness, which encouraged further dialogue. He realized that small, meaningful exchanges could gradually build rapport and trust. He also took note of her nonverbal cues, the way she maintained eye contact, the calm tone of her voice, and the subtle gestures that communicated confidence and warmth. He reflected on how these details contributed to the positive environment she created. He considered how attention to such subtleties could enhance his own interactions and deepen his understanding of human connection. Throughout the afternoon, he observed how others responded to her guidance and support. He noticed the respect, trust, and willingness to engage that she inspired in the team. He reflected on how these qualities contributed to a productive and harmonious workplace. He considered how his own approach could evolve to incorporate similar principles of empathy, attentiveness, and thoughtful engagement. He also reflected on his personal growth. He recognized that the process of observation, reflection, and subtle engagement had helped him understand his emotions and develop a deeper awareness of human connection. He acknowledged the value of patience, attentiveness, and respect for boundaries in fostering meaningful relationships. He felt a quiet satisfaction in the progress he had made in understanding both himself and others. As the day progressed, he continued to engage in small but meaningful ways. He asked questions, acknowledged contributions, and provided thoughtful feedback. Each interaction was an opportunity to build understanding and trust. He noticed that the rapport between them grew gradually, marked by mutual respect, attentiveness, and subtle recognition of each other's strengths. Before leaving the office, he reflected on the day. He considered the progress made, the subtle growth in understanding, and the emerging sense of connection. He realized that meaningful relationships required ongoing attention, patience, and thoughtful engagement. He felt a quiet sense of fulfillment in navigating his emotions responsibly and fostering a foundation for future connection. He left the office with a sense of calm and anticipation. The journey had revealed the importance of observation, reflection, and subtle engagement in building meaningful relationships. He understood that connection, trust, and understanding were cultivated over time through patience, attentiveness, and thoughtful interaction. He felt prepared to continue this process, aware that personal growth and meaningful connection were ongoing journeys that required care, awareness, and dedication. Over the following days, he maintained this approach, observing, engaging thoughtfully, and reflecting on interactions. He found that the quiet attentiveness and subtle engagement created opportunities for mutual understanding and connection. Each day offered insights into her perspective, her approach, and the ways in which warmth, empathy, and professionalism could coexist. He also reflected on the personal growth he had experienced. He recognized that the process of careful observation, thoughtful interaction, and self-awareness had enhanced his understanding of human connection. He appreciated the value of patience, attentiveness, and subtle engagement in building meaningful relationships. He felt a quiet satisfaction in the ongoing development of both personal awareness and professional skill. By the end of the week, he observed a subtle but meaningful change in their interactions. There was a quiet ease, mutual respect, and a growing sense of understanding. The connection had developed naturally through observation, reflection, and thoughtful engagement. He felt a sense of fulfillment and anticipation, knowing that meaningful connection required ongoing attention, care, and awareness. He left the office feeling calm, reflective, and quietly optimistic about the potential for deeper understanding and meaningful interaction in the days ahead.